Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This mega show is about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Big Sky. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with the situation with T-Lock. Obviously, got a wire put on him and everything, and he's going to be going off to try and save Max and Rachel. And I love that he ended up running into Travis. He doesn't say anything because I guess it's like, oh, I guess you were a cop. You did let me live and everything, even though you kind of scared the crap out of me. He never said anything, but I guess it's just kind of like, well, I guess I don't want to say anything because you scared the crap out of me before. You might scare and threaten me this time too, so. But it's like, yeah, you're here, so I guess I don't have nothing to worry about because you did let me live last time, so. But sadly, when it's time for like to encounter Bob just to get Rachel and Max, part of me I was almost thinking like, do you think Travis gave him the heads up? Because for him to know that he's most likely wearing a wire, maybe it's just because Bob is the paranoid person he is and that he's actually really good at what he does, but I'm still like, him to know that, like, just to know, like, oh, get rid of the wire. I'm like, how did you, I guess he was watching enough to, like, I guess he kept a good enough distance away just to make sure, like, well, he had planned it all out anyway, or maybe he had set that up just in case because he knew, like, right, he must have known that T-Lock, that he must have saw that they were trying to triangulate his position, so he's like, okay, so the cops are listening in, so he must have figured it out on his own, because I was almost thinking Travis gave him a head up, because I'm like, how would you know he's wearing a wire that this was a sting? But in his desperation to save Max and Rachel, he goes off on his own. He follows Bob's orders and stuff, and it's still what I think. I mean, I'm surprised at the end it seems like Bob really was potentially just going to let Max and Rachel go, but I'm not sure. Like, the fact is, he went out of his way to let them live. I mean, let them see his face. Like, normally if a criminal's doing that, it's because they have no intention of, like, letting you live, that they plan on killing you, is kind of what that made me feel at the very least. But regardless of it all, at the end of the day, though, once again, T-Lock was such a douchebag, like, for so much of this, but they actually did kind of redeem him. Does it make up for everything? No. Did he do a lot of terrible stuff? He did a lot of stupid stuff. He didn't do terrible stuff. Forcing Max to get the money for him, sure. It's just douchey, and I don't know if it'd be terrible, but, you know, he has his very fight or flight, but he chose in this particular instance to fight. He wanted to protect Max and Rachel, and the fact is that he wanted to protect them. And like, when he showed up with the gun and everything and he shot Bob, part of me was like, Bob's not dead, is he? Especially when Bob got up, I was like, all right, please get there in time, Jenny. And sadly they did. Now, before he could pop T-Lock again, they did shoot the gun out of his hand, but Bob sadly got away. And poor T-Lock dying, he'd be like, just tell them I'm sorry. Because I even love that line he had said to them, like, I'm not a bad guy. I've made mistakes, but, you know, at the end of the day, Rachel, she saw through me. She saw past all my mistakes and everything. And yeah, Max didn't like him too much because, yes, T-Lock was kind of douchey, and he was kind of an opportunist, and he did some stupid things, but, like, she saw the good in him, and he was like, right, I wanted to do right by them in this instance, because he's done so many things wrong. Everything he did up to now was wrong, and he wanted to make things right. They're in danger because of me, so I want to make this right. And he died, and at the very least, he did help, you know? And it's sad, you know? And even, you know, Rachel finding out, being like, yeah, at the end of the day, he wasn't, you know, he did some stupid things, yeah, but and even Jenny being like, yeah, he was a good guy in the end, because obviously that hurts Jenny, because it's like, right, she didn't want anyone to die in this. She wanted to make sure to get Max and Rachel back because that was her top priority above anything else, but then also wanted to get T-Lock out of this, promised to, like, to help everybody. So, like, even though she was able to save Max and Rachel, it still sucked that T-Lock died in the process, you know? So that's just kind of like a heartbreaking situation. I'm curious to see what Max feels like. I mean, I think she's there to console her mom after everything, because it's like, wow, despite everything, like, T-Lock sacrificed himself to save us. Like, that means a lot. And I think it must make Max feel a little weird, because it's like, right, I didn't like him. He was kind of a douche. He did some bad things. But, you know, at the end of the day, he did care about my mom, and he was trying to do the right thing. So that's something at the very least. But you also know how it's because Max is probably going to internalize a lot of this too, because it's like if she hadn't done, like, if her, Harper, Madison, and Bridger hadn't taken that money, none of this would have happened. But it wouldn't have given T-Lock an opportunity to grow and become a better person in the end. So, not like, I mean, it's a silver lining, but it doesn't make up for the grand scheme of everything that went down. But it is a silver lining in all of this. But I think Max is still going to internalize, like, right, none of this would have happened. We'd never taken that money back then. But, you know, if they wish they could go back in time and undo that, because there's been so much fallout because of that. That one single choice has led to all of this. So that's heartbreaking. And of course, Travis got the money, and it's like, right, this way he's in good with not only Ren, but because their dad is going to vet them and stuff. So he's like, right, if I bring the money, I'm in deep with them. Because at the end of the day, Travis is still out for revenge, you know, because it does seem like his partner died or whatever because of Ren's family, maybe specifically her dad. It seems like he wants to take down the entire operation, but it's their dad. He seems, this in particular, wants to go after extremely hard. So I am curious, was he actually going to tell Jenny the truth? Because it seemed like he was going to say, Jenny, I guess he wanted to let her in on it, but, like, you know, the moment she got caught away with the whole Cassie thing, which we'll get to soon enough, I think that probably, you know, he was wanting to open up because Jenny's all in, she trusts him, she's thanking him, and it's like, right, I had my ulterior motives. He wanted things to play out a little differently because he wanted to take the chance, because he's like, right, I need that money for my own operation. Well, I say operation because that's the official terms for it, but on a personal level, it's a vendetta. You know, he wants revenge, and he's kind of willing to go. And obviously, once again, our thing about revenge is you always have to dig a grave for you and the other person, because you both going to end up walking away dead. Like, Travis might even die in the process, which would suck once again, because every relationship Jenny's had has, like, led to, like, someone she's cared about dying in some shape or form. It's like, Jesus, it happened back to back last season. Like, it'd suck if it happened again, but there's a good chance Travis is going to get himself killed because his need for revenge might get him in too deep. There's, like, no happy endings in the show. It's just kind of like silver linings, but just like, it show's so depressing actually now when there's some levity here and there, but, like, the end results are so, like the back half of last season, like that whole family drama. Literally, most of that family walked away dead. Cheyenne and her mom were the only ones that survived all of that. Everyone else was dead. All the brothers are dead. The dad's dead. It's just like, man, just like everything was depressing, you know? So I kind of get this ended up having a depressing result, and we're not even done yet. We're done with part of it, but Bob's still out there. He's going to be rogue and have to be dealt with. And Travis focusing more on the money is probably going to come back to bite him, especially because, you know, Bob's probably going to report that to Dietrich because it's like, cool, like he's more so on Ren's family side than theirs, but once again, that's just because he wants to take them down, which benefits Dietrich. We'll see how that plays out with the whole, especially because Bob kind of asserted himself last time. So I guess Bob's going to be like at least a new threat. Whether he'll like get main enemy antagonist status or anything, I doubt it. But he's going to be a wild card that's out in the wind. So we'll see how that plays out. But another element to this episode, I love that they're Ren and Jag's dad is like, okay, tell us your plan and everything, and they involve Tanya. And she's like, oh yeah, like everything, the drivers and everything are trustworthy. And Dono's like, yeah, we threatened their family and friends, and I got my saw and everything. And their dad is like, he needs to not speak anymore. And I love it. But then like, there's this whole thing every time Alicia's interjecting, like, I know my opinion doesn't matter, but essentially their dad wants to pack up from Canada. They're like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, the whole operation in Montana, let's move it up, and we're going to pack up everything from Canada, which for them there's sentimental value because that house in Canada is their home. It's like, right, it's like not just our home base, it's where we grew up, you know, it's probably like a final connection that they have to their mom. And you could tell, like, Ren's like, something's up here in the way she's looking at Alicia. Like, Alicia knows what's what. And obviously, I love the whole Jag and her talking. It's like, that's the first, like, real, like, sibling moment that they've ever had. I mean, granted, siblings fight, so, but it's like this loving, like, back and forth that they have, being like, Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Got dad doing yoga, and it's like, yeah, you guys could go talk about Alanis Morissette. She's like, really? If that woman ruins Alanis for me, I'll kill her with my own hands. And it's just like, yeah, and maybe you guys go get a pedicure. She's like, a pedicure? She's like, you think that's what we do? And he's like, yeah, like girl talk and all that, right? And she's just like, you don't know anything. He's like, what? It's such a sweet moment of sweet and funny. Like there's levity to it. There's so much fun between them. And so the way their dad talks when he's sitting down talking to Ren about like, right, you have a really good plan. And, it's like, because she's like, wow, you're dishing out compliments. He was like, I dish them out sometimes. But he's also like, I'm not one of those people that's like, all of that can kind of come off weakness. I don't expect that of my children. I expect greatness from you. And he's like, all right, I want you to play this particular piece for me. And she's like, okay, if you tell me what's what. He was like, you're not ready for it. And she's getting ready. And he's like, either it's perfect or not at all. So, but he says like, yeah, I just want to pad things up and spend time with my children. And then the moment he said that, I was like, you're sick, aren't you? You're sick and you're dying. Like, Alicia isn't just your girlfriend. She's your caretaker. Like, I think it's like a thing of like, right, she started taking care of you and then you fell in love. That's what the yoga's about and stuff like that, to help with alleviate some of his symptoms and stuff. He's sick and he's trying to prepare his children. He wants them both to be in a better place because he wants them to look after each other when he's gone, because I won't be there to keep an eye on you, and I want to make sure you're both prepared for what's inevitable. Especially when Alicia was like, did you tell them? He was like, no, now's not the right time, and they walk off hugging together. I'm like, that's what I think it is. Because I love that, like, Ren's main concern is, well, there's a good chance she might get a slice of our family legacy, getting so close to dad in such a short amount of time. And even I at first was like, you don't think she's an undercover cop, do you? But it's like, no, I think she's like a doctor. Either she's like an actual doctor and caretaker, or she's like someone who believes in more... God, what's the word I'm looking for? Not modern medicine, but maybe she believes in other forms of medicine. And that's what she's kind of, maybe modern medicine too, but like also like the yoga and stuff. Like, it makes me think she's trying to do everything to help him. So I think that's the thing about Ren's dad. I think Ren and Jack's dad, I think he's sick and he's dying, and that's what this is all about. So we'll have to wait and see to confirm whether that's the case, but that's my initial inkling why he's doing all this now. Why this sudden decision? Like, cool, let's move the operation up, and let's close down shop on everything related to Canada, and even like sell the house and stuff. Shut that all down. So we shall see. And then on the flip side of things, which kind of continues the trend of I brought up earlier of like nothing has a happy ending. It's the whole Ronald, Cassie, Lindor, Wolf situation. There's no like happy ending, happy resolve to all of that. So they're tracking down Ronald, but sadly, while Ronald's getting patched up by that doctor, the doctor finds the microchip, the tracker. And so what I thought was so interesting is, obviously, Phoebe walks in, she sees her mom with the gun. It is still the thing of she knows something's up, but she doesn't want to question it too much because it's her mom. Like, Ronald, she'll question him all day long. Like I said, it's still the kid thing of her, like, oh, I don't care for you, but I don't want him to die. Even though she did say, you are going to die, Ronald. And I wasn't sure by whose hand. We found out at the end of the episode whose hand. Not unless we find out he's not dead, but it seems like we might be concluding that finally after all this time. I was kind of surprised. I thought that would stretch out a little bit longer, like Ronald's storyline and all of this. But especially because he saw Rick last episode as he's slipping in and out of consciousness, like between life and death. Then also the fact is that Phoebe said that whole thing of like, oh, you're going to die. I'm like, yeah, it's going to happen. So like I said, it was just a matter of by whose hand. But I was actually shocked by the Scarlet thing. I wonder, was Rick referencing like a secret? Was that the only secret he was talking about? Like, oh yeah, like Ronald knew this secret, so that it's not much of a secret. But I wonder if was that what he was referencing? I guess it was just trying to make him go like, right, can you really trust her? You can't trust anyone. Obviously, things are always complicated with you when it comes to women, Ronald. So how are you sure you're not blinded by your own? That he isn't being driven by his need for love and fulfillment, trying to fill the void inside of himself, that's not just driving him and making him blind to what's in front of him when it comes to the whole Scarlet thing. So I thought that was interesting. Especially because, like, on the flip side of it with the whole Lindor thing, Lindor was trying to make Cassie like, right, we can't track him down. Who knows if Wolf is lying? We have him. We're not going to give up on Ronald, but we need to kind of take a step back now and just take him in. But then just when that's happening, it's like, nope, we're going to, Ronald found the signal again that led them to the doctor's wife who pointed them in the right direction. Well, because they know Wolf was following the signal. They didn't know, like, Lindor and Cassie were mixed up in this. Sadly, the doctor, who was trying to give her parental advice, being like, right, you don't, like, your daughter, like, her seeing you like this, getting her mixed up in all this, like, what are you planning on doing? Like, when this is all said and done, do you plan on just walking away from this? Like, with your daughter in hand, like, that's not going to be great like you expected. It's not going to work out the way you want it to. But, you know, Scarlett wasn't trying to listen to him. But the moment her back was turned, he stabbed her. I was like, yo! I thought he was in... Like, it looked like what he had was a blade or something. But I was like, oh, at least some, like, medical instrument. But I was like... At first I was like, oh, is he just going to, like, syringe her? It's like, no, when you look at it later on, there's blood from that wound. Which Ronald was like, how dare you do that? And snaps the doctor's neck. So, he's dead. Scarlett's dead because, like, she doesn't move later on. Granted, no one really checked her in the heat of all the moment. Maybe Ronald did, and it was like, nope, it's too late. So, well, later on, Phoebe's just like, oh, my mom's hurt. She might not have checked her mom, but I'm assuming Scarlett's still breathing and okay, potentially. Because I'll get to that in a second where I think that might lead. Well, go ahead. I think Scarlett's going to be alive. She's going to get arrested, and Phoebe's going to be taken from her because it's like, right, oh, you're a terrible mom, but she's going to be like, no, I'm a good mom. Like, don't take my daughter away from me, and that's going to be a bargaining chip to try and get information out of the people that Ronald... Well, because Wolf is still alive. I don't think he's going to die. I think he's going to be wounded. Once again, it'd be funny if, despite... Even though we don't directly get there... It'd be interesting if it turns out like he does end up in a hospital, which once again would be interesting because your brother died in a hospital. Granted, his wife bashed his head in, but I was almost wondering, like, it'd be interesting, like, you're in a hospital and someone either from the organization that your brother was connected to, or the whole Milton thing, or like Scarlett or somebody decides to do it and you die in a hospital, much like your brother. I could see that happening, maybe, but. The moment Wolf got free, though, I was like, is he going to... I was like, no, he's not going to run away. He's going to go after Ronald, because he's going to blame Ronald. To be fair, the one who killed your wife was Scarlett, so that might still be drive for you. But it's like, this all started with Ronald. He kept Scarlett under control until Ronald kind of polluted her. I mean, to be fair, it's kind of give and take. Like, he kind of awakened that darker side of her yet again. It was already there, but I'd say... Wolf was able to at least submerge it for some time. It probably would have always resurfaced at some point in time, but I think Ronald probably made it resurface a lot sooner than it probably naturally would have. Who knows? There's a lot of what ifs, and you don't know in the end result how that would have played out, but when the time comes, Wolf plans on putting Ronald down. It's like, oh, you're going to arrest him? No, and like Lindor's like, put the gun down or I will shoot you and kill you, and he's like, go ahead, I don't care. He has nothing to live for anymore either, because it's like, the last thing he needs to do in this world is put Ronald down for what he did. It's like, you try to kill me, and you kill my wife. It's like, no, I gotta put you down like the dog you are, for my own personal revenge, but he's probably also thinking like, no, it's for the betterment of the world. And so, Lindor shoots him, he shoots Lindor. I'm actually surprised Ronald didn't take that opportunity to put either one of them down, but he walks away. Luckily, Cassie gets there, goes to handle things herself. Ronald like ends up stabbing her with a hook, and he's like, oh, you should have just let me go. She did. She stopped investigating you. That didn't stop you. You didn't have to go back there. That's on you, Ronald. Yes, you didn't want the fight. Her father did, but it's like, you should have never been there in the first place. You had the golden opportunity to get away. You had Phoebe. You could have gone back, and like everything would have been hunky-dory. You still would have been hunted later on and stuff like that, but Cassie wouldn't have come after you. You brought this upon yourself because you had to stop, because you couldn't let go, Ronald. You couldn't let go because of your nature and all that you are. You couldn't let go, and that's what led to this, because you killed her dad and you expected her just to let go. She had stopped investigating you because she didn't want her family dragged in this. Ironically enough, you still found your way back to her. And it wasn't even because Lindor was investigating necessarily. It's just you two were looking for an escape. He saw an opportunity to go check on Cassie because like, oh, I remember everything you put me through. You were hunting me. She had let go, and you got the audacity. I wish she could have said something like that to him before the end, being like, no, I didn't. But for her, it's like, it doesn't matter. She took the opportunity she had and took the hook out of her and like stabbed it in his neck. And she was like, no, look at me. I was like, ooh. And his final words was, I was a good boy. It's like, maybe at some point in time you were, but after all the terrible stuff you've done, Ronald, I don't know. And Cassie just kind of, like, afterwards just kind of walks away. So, like I said, I think Scarlett's okay. Phoebe went back to her mom. All she said was like, oh, my mom's hurt. So I don't think she's dead. She's just hurt. But she's not going to be too happy knowing Ronald's dead, especially knowing that Cassie's the one that killed him. So, like I said, not unless we find out, like, oh, he managed to crawl away and survive, but we'll see. Wolf is still alive, so he might have some information about, like, you know, we know he has a tie to Milton and stuff, so he might be the direct correlation to all of that, but getting revenge isn't going to fill that hole in Cassie. Like, killing Ronald, even with her own hands, it's like, no, it doesn't bring her dad back, it doesn't fill that hole inside of her heart. So where she goes from here is going to be interesting, because I was wondering, because Jenny was like going to show up, try to be there, but I think that's because at the time Denise probably only got there well, they were at a farmhouse, so I'm guessing she's referencing Wolf's place. So Jenny was always going to be like a step behind to some extent, so she wouldn't have been able to directly back them up. I was hoping she'd be able to get there in time, because I was scared like anything could go, because I was like, I don't think they're going to, but I was like, please don't let Ronald kill Lindor. Luckily he didn't, but it's, like I said, it's interesting to know that this is where Ronald's story ends. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised, because like around the same time, it's like, yeah, Rick's story ended kind of like that. So it was like, that was kind of a little well, I didn't expect him to get shot in the head. Like episode was at 4 or 5. And now it's just like, at this point, Ronald's dealt with after everything, you know? But I guess it's just like, right, probably after everything with Ren and her family's dealt with, the only missing piece to all of this will, and I guess they'll swoop in to be like the main antagonist afterwards, potentially, would be the people that Rick was working for, this Milton and all that. Like, that might be the final like set of antagonists potentially. Like, I think this whole Ren thing is going to be like her and her family is going to be the final thing, and everything with Travis and all that story, that's going to be like the final push. But there's, like I said, there still probably will be more from this whole Wolf, Scarlet, and Ronald thing. We'll just ultimately have to wait and see where all this ends up taking us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live a life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.